We are going to be looking at today on the power of words. And let me warn you, okay? This is James is a little odd about this, and you'll figure this out here toward the end. That this is just a little bit different, and so right up front. James is very, very, restrictive here. Man, you've got to get a handle on this thing. All right, and so there's not a lot of positive in it, and yet it's very positive. Next week we will be talking on a very positive note about words, but today we're going to be looking at the power of words. So Me and My Big Mouth Part 2, and the power of words. And we know that that words, carry power with them, but oftentimes, we get careless. And we say things carelessly that perhaps we don't really understand exactly how powerful what we are saying is coming off or not coming off. And so when you leave today, I hope you got a better understanding and of who you are and how you talk, how you speak, and what direction you need to be going with your rhetoric. Okay, so last week it boiled down to this. All right, swift to hear and slow to speak. Swift to hear and slow to speak. Remember, we had a little thing we were doing last week, okay? Really quick, swift to hear, and then really slow to speak. Okay, ready? Try it. Here we go. Swift to hear, slow to speak. Okay, you remembered. You did well, all right? And one more time. Swift to hear, slow to speak. Okay, so that was James' message last week, and we're going to kind of continue that this week. But words basically are important, and so we need to be swift to hear and slow to speak them, because the words that come out of your mouth, they shape lives. In fact, your life has been shaped by the words that have been spoken to you, words that have been spoken over you, and words that have been spoken about you. That's what shapes your life. Well, you can go through life, honestly, and we could go, if you was just to show up in society as a blank page, what will end up being your life are the words that are spoken to us, or the words that are spoken over us, or the words that are spoken about us. The fact is, a very, very confident person, you can destroy their confidence by words you speak to them. Just negative words you speak to them. It can destroy their confidence. And honestly, many of you that maybe you're insecure. Maybe there's, you lack self-confidence. And yet, words spoken over you can actually give you extraordinary confidence. And honestly, words spoken about us can destroy us. And maybe emotionally, they don't even hurt. It's like water off a duck's back. You don't care. Doesn't seem to bother you at all. But if others believe it, it can affect your job. Maybe you'll lose a job because somebody said something about you. And maybe it was out of context. Maybe it wasn't true. But it was just spoken about you, and it shaped you. So words, they do shape our lives. Now here's the other thing. And if you are a parent, or if you have a parent or had a parent, which basically is everybody in the room, okay? But you need to understand that words aren't equally weighted. They're not equally weighted. One person can say something and it doesn't affect anything. No real influence. Another person can say the exact same thing, and there's tremendous influence. So in other words, you may work with somebody and they may tell you something. Maybe it's a criticism, maybe it's a justified criticism, but because of where it came from a colleague, maybe it's 20%. It weighs 20 pounds, okay? All right, but if your boss tells you that thing, it's 150 pounds. It isn't 20 pounds, it's 150. Why? Because words are not equally weighted. All right? Now, the source is not equally weighted as well. Okay, so if it comes from your boss, it weighs more. If it comes from, hey, if your words come from somebody close to you, it could be 500 pounds. Parents, dad, especially dads, your words seem to weigh the most. 500 pounds. You say something, and especially the younger kids. We have a gal in our family, in our life, and you're thinking a gal. Why don't you? We know your daughters, right? But there was a gal that lived with us for several years. We raised her from the time she was 12 until she went off to Bible college, and so she's very close to our family, and many of you know her. But anyway, there is a strain there between her and her parents. Obviously, there was a lot of dysfunction in her childhood, that kind of thing. And she's tried to make a connection there with her mom. All right, and yet Jill has become a parent figure. We both have become a parent figure, and she struggled and struggled, but she's doing well. She's really she's got her own family now. She's got like a gazillion kids. I mean seriously, like 8, 9. How many kids? 8, 9 kids? 7? No, that's not right. Is it 8's enough anyway? All right, so anyway, she's got a bunch of kids, and I'm a great father figure. I don't even know how many kids she has. All right, so, but anyway, they're working in a church down in Missouri, and they're just doing good. And Jill encourages her, talks to her on the phone every week, and she's just encouraging her and telling her how good she's doing, and just trying to be a blessing to her. And she said, I wish my mom would tell me that, because that's the weight that counts. Yes, but she appreciates, but if she could hear those words from her mom, it would be a game changer. So words aren't equally weighted. They can actually bring more weight. The source is not equally weighted, and then recovery time of words is not equally weighted. If you say something hurtful to somebody, and you say, "I'm sorry," is not a magic pill. Okay, it's like, okay, they said I'm sorry, so what's your problem? I just slammed you in the face with a frying pan, and I said I was sorry. No, why aren't we? In other words, what we are presuming is that because I said I'm sorry, we should be back to where we were. It doesn't work that way. If you bump me and you say, I'm sorry, okay, we're back to where we were. But if you shut my fingers in a car door and you mangle them and say, oh, I'm sorry, it was an accident, I still got to go to the emergency room, right? I still got to, there's a healing process. So if you say something hurtful and it's really hurtful, and then you say, I was out of line, I was sorry, I was drunk, I said something, I'm sorry, why aren't we back to where we were? Because there needs to be some healing time. Recovery time is not equally weighted. So words, not equally weighted. One negative comment can outweigh a dozen compliments. In fact, you rarely remember compliments, but you can remember insults. You still remember. You can remember something somebody said that cut you deep, back in your childhood. You probably got a memory of early on, decades ago, when somebody said something. But all those compliments you've gotten since then, we rarely remember them. But we remember hurts. So words aren't equally weighted. The source isn't equally weighted. Where it comes from really matters. And recovery time is not equally weighted. So, sorry, takes time to prove it, So, all right, we're going to get started here in the, that was your intro, okay? That was kind of the backdrop. You didn't think I was going to go a week without doing that, did you? Okay. But we're going to look where we left off with James last week. Swift to hear, slow to speak. He was warning us here. We need to be swift to hear, slow to speak, especially in conflict, especially when you're angry, especially when things are heated. Be swift to hear and slow to speak, because everybody wants the same thing. They want to be heard and understood. And if you step up and you're the one that's listening quickly listening, and yet holding back in your speech, you're more like. More Christ-like, I should say. So we're going to look at James' expo on the power of words, his expository teaching on the power of words. And honestly, James spends a lot of he spends a lot of time. He gives a lot of space in his letter to this subject of words and the power of words and what happens. I mean, he's already given us great advice, being swift to hear and slow to speak, and yet he continues this theme of his concerns about us being careless with the way we talk to people, the way we deal with people, the way we communicate with people, the way we argue with people. Swift to hear, slow to speak. And so he takes it to a step deeper in James chapter 3, verse number 2, okay? And he gets started here, and this is primarily to Christians, but this is good advice to anybody. All right, even if you're not a Christian, this will work for you, okay? So heed his words. All right, so he says this, and this is part A. This is the first part of the verse. For in many things we offend all. In many things we offend all. In other words, what James is saying here, okay, is just, this is a true statement. All right, if you're human, you're going to offend somebody. It just happens. Doesn't mean you meant for it to happen, but it happens. If your camel gets out and goes and eats somebody's vegetable, I know every one of us has a camel, but if your camel got out, James's camel got out, and it went over and ate somebody's vegetable garden, right? They're going to be mad at you. They don't get mad at the camel. They may shoo the camel off, but they're going to be mad at you. Then the camel gets out and eats your vegetable garden, then he fertilizes it. They're really mad at you. And so you understand, in many things, there's 100 different ways that people are going to get offended at you. All right, but then he finishes the verse, and he says, and if any man offend not in word. In other words, life has enough problems. In fact, Paul even tells us, if it be possible, live peaceably with every man. In other words, it's not always possible. Sometimes things happen. You didn't see a guy and you pulled out in front of him. You didn't know you were cutting in line. I've done that a couple times. Man, that is, if you ever accidentally cut in line with somebody and you got furious, the average person does that one time and then you pay attention. Unfortunately, I'm above average. I just did it last week. I didn't even see him back there, I'm like, well, if you were in line, you should be cut closer, but I didn't, and they were right, and I apologize. But if it's possible, live peaceably with every man. In many things, we offend all. Everybody at some point gets offended. And you've offended people. But if any man offend not in word, this is one of the ways that you can actually cut down on offenses, by watching what you say. So this is his theme, all right? This is the thesis of everything we're going to talk about today. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, This is a perfect, mature or complete man. This is the guy who's complete. This is the guy who's got it all together. So the same as a perfect man, the man that's got it all together, he's able also to bridle the whole body. So if you can control what you say, control what comes out of, your big mouth, you can keep the whole body out of trouble. So he goes on and he begins his first illustration here. Next, this is his world, right? Some of you people are horse people. Dave, Shelley, you got horses? Is that, no, you don't have horses? I thought you had horses. All right. Why did I think that? Yeah, but I didn't know that. But anyway, but if we put bits in horses' mouths, again, his world, maybe, I don't know if you've ever put a bit in a horse's mouth. It can be difficult. It can be tough, all right? We owned a horse back when I pastored Calvary, and sometimes, he was willing, sometimes he wasn't, He just would get ornery, all right? But this is an everyday offense, or an everyday event for them, all right? So we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. And this is amazing. The Colts lived in Mexico for 4 or 5 years, all right? And and Lainey, Lainey? She's 11 years old now. She was like 6 years old, little bitty thing. And they set her up. She wanted to, ride horses, and so they got her horse riding lessons, and they took her a couple times a week to this ranch out in Mexico, And they took this little bitty 6-year-old girl, right? And it was like, Pop, you got to come see me, ride a horse. And I said, oh yeah, that'd be great, I think, And I mean, little bitty kid, and they set her on a horse, and her legs kind of went out. She wasn't big enough for the legs to get the stirrup, but there she was. This little bitty kid on this, big horse, huge mammoth, okay, size of an elephant, horse, all right? I mean, in comparison, this little girl on this horse, and the gal that helped her, I mean, she's so small, she had to have help. The gal that helped her up on the horse handed her the reins, and she's just trotting all over the arena. It was kind of scary for Pop, but it was amazing. We put bits in horses' mouths. In other words, that small item, that small bit, turns about the whole body. This entire beast he's being navigated by a little bitty 6-year-old girl. Second illustration. Behold, also ships. Now, keep in mind, James, first century Christian, right? Ships would have been the largest thing man-made other than maybe buildings, okay? But this would have been the largest invention of man. To see a ship made by a human, it would have been, unbelievable. This is like, wow, I can't believe humans can make such, items, all right? First century, right? So, behold, also ships, which though they be so great, they're huge, the largest thing man makes, all right? And they're driven of fierce winds, yet they're turned about by a very small little helm, whithersoever the governor listeth, wherever the pilot wants it to go. It's just a little bitty thing. So point of the two illustrations. Bits in horses' mouths, a rudder in a fierce ship, okay? The point of the illustration is small part, big influence. Small part, big influence.